A man spotted a canine dog swimming alone. Over 100 miles from shore, everyone assumed he was lost. But when they pulled him aboard, they realized he wasn't just trying to survive. He was tracking something, and what they found might be the most shocking part of all. Now, before we reveal the full story, drop a comment below telling us where in the world you're watching from. And if you love extraordinary police dogs, stories like this one, make sure to hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what's coming next. The sun hadn't even cleared the horizon when Mason Carter saw it. Just a speck at first, a dark smudge against all that endless gray blue. One of those hazy Gulf mornings where the ocean bleeds right into the sky. Mason squinted, coffee mug halfway to his lips. 20 years on these waters, and he'd seen some strange things, but this was different. The speck was moving. He set down his mug and reached for the binoculars that hung from a nail near the captain's chair. Jesus Christ, he whispered. A dog, a goddamn dog, swimming, out here, 112 miles from the nearest shore, not just paddling around like it fell off somebody's yacht either. This animal was moving, head up, shoulders working, legs churning through the swells with machine-like precision, like it knew exactly where it was going. Mason dropped his binoculars and scrambled toward the controls. The sonar he'd been using to track that school of yellowfin pinged softly. Forgotten. Hold on, buddy, he muttered, swinging the boat around. Just hold on. He'd nearly reached the dog when it happened. The animal's rhythm faltered. One stroke, then another, and then nothing. The dark head disappeared beneath a swell. No, no, no! Mason slammed the throttle forward, scanning the water frantically. His calloused hands gripped the wheel so tight his knuckles went white. 30 seconds crawled by. 45. Then a splash off the port side. The dog had resurfaced, coughing, struggling. Mason didn't hesitate. He killed the engine, grabbed a gaff hook with one hand, and tossed the rope ladder over the side with the other. By the time he reached the edge, the dog was already at the hull, front paws scrabbling against the slick fiberglass. I gotcha, Mason grunted, leaning dangerously far over the side. He grabbed the animal's tactical vest, soaking wet but still intact, and hauled upward with a strength that surprised even him. The dog collapsed on the deck, in a heap of wet fur and heaving breaths. Water pooled beneath its massive frame. A German shepherd, Mason realized, and not just any shepherd. This one wore gear, professional gear. The patch on the side of the vest read, K9, Ghost. Mason knelt down, not even bothering to wipe the seawater from his face. Where the hell did you come from, boy? The dog, Ghost, looked up at him. And that's when Mason felt it. A chill that had nothing to do with the morning air or his soaked clothes. Because this wasn't a look of relief or confusion. Those eyes were focused, determined, like the animal was thinking, calculating. Mason had seen that look before. On soldiers, on cops, on people with a mission that failure wasn't going to stop. His hands shook slightly as he reached for the radio mounted near the helm. Coast Guard, this is fishing vessel Second Chance. He paused, suddenly aware how crazy he was about to sound. I've got a police dog out here, a live K9 unit, 100 miles offshore, swimming, repeat, swimming in open water. The static stretched for several seconds before a confused voice crackled back. Say again? Did you say police dog? Affirmative. Mason glanced back at Ghost, who was now struggling to sit upright despite obvious exhaustion. A German shepherd, tactical vest, still alive. No idea how long he's been out here. Another pause. He could almost picture the Coast Guard operator trying to make sense of this. Second Chance, hold your position. We're dispatching a wildlife patrol boat to your coordinates. ETA approximately 45 minutes. Keep the animal secured and under observation. Do not approach any other vessels. Mason hung up the radio, frowning at that last instruction. Why would they... He turned back to Ghost. Help's coming, buddy. Just rest. But the dog wasn't resting. Despite trembling legs and heaving sides, Ghost was on his feet now, unsteady but standing, and his attention wasn't on Mason, or the boat, or even the water. he'd just been pulled from. He was looking out, past the boat, toward the horizon, toward something, and that's when Mason realized this wasn't a lost dog. This was a dog with somewhere to be. Officer Danny Vega's apartment looked like a crime scene. Pizza boxes stacked on the counter, case files scattered across the coffee table, the TV muttering quietly in the background about a tropical storm forming near the Yucatan. The blinds were drawn despite the mid-morning light, casting the room in artificial shadows. Danny hadn't slept. Not really. She'd gone home when Captain Reynolds ordered her to. Showered off the salt and sweat, changed into a fresh uniform. But actual sleep? That just wasn't happening. Not after Ghost disappeared. Her phone sat on the arm of the couch. Screen cracked from when she'd thrown it against the wall last night. She'd called the Coast Guard repeatedly until the watch commander finally snapped at her. Officer Vega, our search patterns covered a 20-mile radius from the incident site. The storm surge created 30-foot swells. Visibility was 0. We had 4 vessels taking on water. I understand your attachment to your canine partner, but we had human lives at stake. She'd wanted to scream at him. Wanted to tell him that Ghost wasn't just some dog. He was her partner, her shadow. The only one who'd ever had her back without question. Instead, she'd said, "Yes, sir, I understand," in that flat professional tone that cost her everything to maintain. The department had already processed the paperwork. Loss in the line of duty. They'd used the word presumed, but Danny knew what that meant in official terms. They'd given up. She hadn't. Ghost had survived 3 tours in Afghanistan before being repurposed for police work. He'd lived through building collapses, flash floods, and a tunnel cave-in during that narcotics raid in Brownsville last year. If any dog could survive what happened 2 nights ago, it was him. But even she had to admit, the odds were impossible. They'd been assisting a joint operation with the Coast Guard. A suspected cartel supply boat had capsized during a pursuit. In the chaos, lights flashing and waves crashing over the deck, people shouting. Ghost had gone after one of the runners, launched himself across the slick deck and into the dark water. Danny had screamed his name, had nearly gone in after him. Would have, if 2 Coast Guard officers hadn't physically restrained her. They'd searched for hours. Found nothing. Her phone rang, startling her from the memory. She didn't recognize the number, some 504 area code, but answered anyway. "This is Officer Vega." Her voice sounded rough, unused. "Yeah, this is Mason Carter." The man on the other end sounded uncertain, like he wasn't sure he had the right person. "Coast Guard gave me your number. Said you're the handler for a canine named Ghost?" Danny sat up so fast her head spun. "Yes." The word came out in a breathless rush. Yes, Ghost is my partner." "Well, I just pulled him out of the Gulf about an hour ago. He was swimming, looked half dead, but the tough son of a bitch made it to my boat somehow." She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Her free hand gripped the edge of the couch so hard her knuckles went white. "Hello? You still there?" "I'm on my way," she finally managed, already on her feet. "Where are you docked?" "We're not yet. Coast Guard's redirecting us to Station Perdido. Said they want to check the dog out before transport. You've got about an hour before we get there." She was already grabbing her keys, shouldering past the pizza boxes, mind racing. "I'll be there." "Hey, officer," Mason's voice caught her just as she was about to hang up. "Your dog, he's something else. Never seen anything like it. He's still trying to work, even after what he's been through." The lump in her throat made it hard to answer. "Yeah, that's Ghost." The drive to Station Perdido was a blur. Danny broke at least 6 traffic laws, badge flashing on her dashboard. She kept the windows down despite the heat, like somehow the rush of air would help her think more clearly. Ghost was alive. Somehow, impossibly, alive. When she arrived, Ghost was on the dock under a thermal blanket, surrounded by curious Coast Guard officers and wildlife specialists. But even surrounded, he looked solitary, alert despite his ordeal. His ears perked the instant he caught her scent. "Ghost," she whispered, and that single word contained everything. Relief, disbelief, the crushing weight of what might have been. He rose on shaking legs, his wet fur matted in places. his eyes fever bright with exhaustion. But he was there, real, alive. Danny dropped to her knees on the rough planking of the dock, wrapping her arms around his thick neck. His body sagged against hers like he'd been holding himself together by sheer willpower until she arrived. "You crazy, stubborn bastard," she murmured into his fur, not caring who heard or saw. "You came back." Someone nearby clapped quietly. Another voice muttered something about loyalty, like that's just different. But as Danny ran her hands over the ghost's body, checking for injuries, her police training kicked back in. The dog was exhausted, yes, but something else was going on. He wasn't trying to rest or recover. He kept shifting against her, trying to stand, kept turning toward the water like something was out there, something important. That's when she felt it, a rectangular lump beneath the vest's pocket flap, still there somehow despite everything. She carefully opened the waterproof pocket and removed a small electronic device. Not department issue, definitely not something she'd ever put on Ghost's gear. A tracker, military grade, the kind used by smugglers or spies. Her blood ran cold. "What did you find out there?" she whispered. Ghost didn't answer, but his body went tense under her hand, his attention fixed on the open water with the intensity she recognized from hundreds of training sessions. That look that said, "There's something out there you need to see." And suddenly Danny understood. Ghost hadn't been swimming aimlessly. He'd been following something. Or someone. The veterinary unit at Station Perdido wasn't much. Basically a converted storage room with medical equipment and a stainless steel exam table. But it was enough. Dr. Connors, the Coast Guard's on-call vet, moved with practiced efficiency as he examined Ghost, temperature, heart rate, oxygen levels. The dog endured it all with stoic patience. "Remarkable animal," Connors murmured, checking Ghost's pupils. "Moderate dehydration, minor lacerations to the paw pads, but considering what he's been through..." He shook his head in disbelief. "His vitals are stable. He's burned more calories than most dogs would in a week, but nothing's failing." "He's trying to go back," Danny said, more to herself than the doctor. She hadn't taken her eyes off Ghost since they'd arrived. Connors nodded, recognizing something in her tone. Some working dogs are like that. They don't stop until the job is done. He finished the exam and stepped back. "I'd recommend 24 hours of rest, IV fluids, and close monitoring. But frankly, Miss Vega, that decision is above my pay grade." Danny barely heard him. She was focused on Ghost's vest, which lay on a nearby counter. The tracker wasn't the only thing hidden there. With gloved hands, she examined the waterproof pocket again, feeling along the seam. There, stitched into the lining itself, was a small flash drive wrapped in electrical tape. She peeled it open carefully. No markings, no label, just a small red dot painted on one side, the kind smugglers use to track undocumented supply movements. Offline, untraceable. "How the hell did this get on you?" she muttered. Mason Carter, who'd been hovering near the door through the whole exam, stepped closer. "When I found him, he wasn't just swimming randomly. He was headed somewhere specific, like he had a destination." "He did," Danny said quietly, turning the flash drive over in her palm. Back at the dock, she made a call to dispatch, requesting an urgent analysis of the tracker's serial code. The tech who called her back 10 minutes later sounded like he'd just seen a ghost. "You're not going to believe this," he said, voice low, like someone might be listening. "Try me. That model, it's top-shelf cartel tech. We've only seen it twice before, both times on ghost vessels running product up from the Yucatan. But here's the thing, the ID code on your tracker, it pinged today. Active ping, about 85 miles southeast from your position, middle of nowhere." So Ghost was tracking it? Or it was tracking him? The tech paused. "Vega, what the hell is going on down there?" Danny looked out at the water, at the endless blue stretching to the horizon. Then back at Ghost, who sat watching her with those intelligent eyes. "I'm not sure," she said slowly. "But I don't think we're done yet." That night, back in her apartment, Danny sat on the floor, with case files spread around her, in a semicircle. Ghost lay nearby, eyes following her every move as she flipped through pages. The flash drive had been a gold mine. GPS logs, audio files in Spanish, photographs of cargo manifests, and coordinates. She pulled up the case file from the failed operation 2 nights earlier. Intelligence had dried up too quickly. Their main confidential informant had gone silent 48 hours before the raid, and when the boat capsized, the one person they needed, Elena Reyes, the young woman who had originally tipped them off, vanished. They'd assumed she drowned. But what if that assumption was wrong? What if Ghost hadn't been swimming away from the operation but toward her? She grabbed her laptop, inserted the flash drive, and opened the GPS log. The tracking system was sophisticated, better than anything local cartels usually employed. Last known coordinates, vessel movement, a track line, starting near the cove where Ghost went missing and ending just offshore, right where Mason had found Ghost swimming. She looked down at her partner, who stared back at her with unwavering focus. Is that where you were going? Is that what you found? Ghost's tail thumped once against the carpet. Deliberate, like he understood exactly what she was asking. It was all the confirmation she needed. Okay, Danny whispered, standing up. Let's finish this. By sunrise, Danny was standing in front of the Marine Operations Board at the precinct, coffee cup in one hand, marker in the other, and a growing pile of charts and printouts scattered across the table. Ghost lay beside her, resting but alert, watching every move she made. She'd spent half the night overlaying the GPS data from the flash drive with radar logs from the Coast Guard. 3 cups of burnt precinct coffee later, she found it, a small, irregular blip moving through a radar dead zone. No registered vessel should have been there. No fishing boat, no recreational craft. That's a go-fast boat, she muttered, tracing the path with her finger, hugging the blind spot between 2 buoyed sectors. She reached for her phone, dialing Mason's number. When he answered, his voice was rough with sleep. That area where you found Ghost, she asked without preamble. Was he swimming against the current? Definitely. Mason sounded more awake now. Strong one, too. Tide was pushing east. Your dog was fighting it the whole way. She hung up and stared at the map again, mind racing. If Ghost had been swimming toward that vessel signal, if he'd tracked it for miles against the current, then someone or something on that boat had been important enough for him to nearly kill himself trying to reach it. She pulled up the missing persons list on her terminal. Elena Reyes stared back from her ID photo. 19 years old, soft eyes, half smile, first-generation college student who'd been working as a cocktail server at a club frequented by cartel affiliates. Elena had approached Danny 3 weeks ago, nervous but determined. Said she'd overheard something big, a shipment route, names, dates, and now Elena was missing. Presumed dead after the raid went sideways. But Danny had never fully believed that. And now Ghost had swum through open water to a position not far from where Elena might have last been. What if she wasn't dead? What if she was still out there? By mid-morning, Danny had commandeered a patrol boat. Ghost sat in the bow, eyes scanning the water with preternatural focus, his strength visibly returning hour by hour. Brent Carson, fellow officer and occasional partner, stood on the dock, watching her prepare for departure. You know this is crazy, right? He called over the sound of the engine. Yep. Danny checked the GPS unit one last time. You're following a dog back into open water, a dog that just swam 100 miles. Seems like it. Carson shook his head, but there was no real criticism in it. You really think he found something out there? Danny looked at Ghost, who sat perfectly still except for his ears, which kept swiveling toward the open water. He didn't swim away from something, Brent, she said quietly. He swam toward it. Big difference. Carson nodded slowly. Then I guess you better trust your partner. Always do. The journey took hours, miles of open water under an unforgiving sun, nothing but blue in every direction. Ghost remained alert the entire time, watchful, patient, almost unnaturally still except for his eyes, which never stopped scanning. Then, around mile 92, everything changed. It happened in an instant. Ghost's entire body tensed, his head snapped up, ears forward, tail rigid. A low whine escaped his throat. Not pain or fear, but recognition. He moved to the port side railing, front paws up, barking with an urgency Danny recognized from hundreds of search operations. She killed the engine, grabbing her binoculars, following Ghost's line of sight. At first, nothing. Then, a flash of orange against the endless blue. Not much, just a sliver. But definitely not a natural color for these waters. Danny eased the boat forward, heart hammering against her ribs. The shape grew clearer with each yard. A life raft, small, weather-beaten, and inside, a figure, motionless. Her hands shook as she reached for the radio. "This is Officer Vega, K9 Division. I have visual on a solo vessel, life raft, unresponsive occupant, request immediate air medevac." She rattled off the coordinates, voice steadier than she felt, and dropped anchor. Ghost barked again, louder, more insistent, practically vibrating with tension. The figure in the raft stirred slightly as Danny approached in the small launch. A girl, barely conscious. Her skin angry red from sun exposure, lips cracked and bleeding, clothes salt stiff. But around her neck hung a familiar silver charm in the shape of a gull's wing. Elena Reyes. The girl's eyes fluttered open as Danny pulled alongside the raft. Recognition flickered across her face, followed immediately by disbelief. "You found me," she whispered, voice like sandpaper. "He found me." Elena was barely coherent as Danny hauled her into the launch. Her body felt too light, desiccated from sun and dehydration. Her fingers clung to the rubber siding of the raft, even as Danny pulled her away like she couldn't quite believe rescue was real, but she kept repeating one thing, over and over, like a prayer or a revelation. "He found me. He found me. He found me." By the time Danny got her back to the main boat, Ghost was nearly frantic. He paced the deck, whining, trying to see over the edge. But when Elena's head finally appeared over the railing, his entire demeanor changed. He went completely still, sat down, watched her with an intensity that was almost human. "Elena," Danny said gently, helping the girl onto the deck. "Do you recognize him?" Elena blinked slowly at Ghost, like she was trying to decide if he was real or a hallucination. Her cracked lips twitched. "That's him," she whispered. "The dog from the boat. He tried to—" "What happened out there?" Danny asked, supporting Elena's weight as she sat her down. "The night of the raid?" Elena winced, her body seizing briefly before she nodded. "I never made it off the boat. When everything started going crazy, the smugglers grabbed me, dragged me to another boat, told me if I screamed again, they'd leave me for the sharks." Danny's jaw tightened. "They kept me hidden, in a crate, for days." Elena's voice cracked. "Then the storm hit. I don't think they knew how to handle the boat in those waves. We got separated from the main ship. They panicked, threw me in a life raft, left me to die." "And Ghost? The dog?" Elena nodded weakly. "He came out of nowhere. I saw him in the water. He tried to get into the raft, but couldn't, so he just swam next to me for hours, never left, until a wave hit, and he disappeared." Danny looked at Ghost, who sat perfectly still, his eyes never leaving Elena. "You weren't lost," she whispered to him. "You were with her the whole time." Within 30 minutes, the distinctive thump-thump-thump of a Coast Guard helicopter cut through the sky. Paramedics descended, secured Elena to a stretcher, and hoisted her up, attaching oxygen and IV fluids before she even reached the cabin. "You're safe now," Danny called up as the rotors kicked salt spray across the deck. Elena managed one last look down. "Tell the dog thank you," she called, her voice nearly lost in the rotor wash. Ghost barked once, just once, like he already knew. The aftermath moved fast, like these things always do in law enforcement. Elena was treated and stabilized. Her testimony, given in a quiet room with a trauma specialist, matched every detail they already knew about the smuggling operation. But she gave them more. Names, routes, faces never seen before. She remembered coordinates, described voices. The flash drive from Ghost's vest confirmed it all. Audio logs, route maps, a full list of drop points used to smuggle weapons and human cargo along the Gulf Coast. Ghost hadn't just saved Elena. He'd delivered evidence that would break open a federal investigation spanning 3 states. Your dog, the DHS representative told Danny later that night, just did the work of 5 agents and a surveillance plane. Danny didn't smile. She looked at Ghost, who had finally truly fallen asleep in the corner of the precinct break room. "He's not my dog," she said quietly. "He's my partner." 2 days later, Danny walked Ghost back to the dock where it all began. The second chance was there, Mason polishing the chrome rail along the bow. "Heard the news," he said, tipping his weathered cap. "She made it." "She did," Danny replied. "Thanks to you." "Wasn't me who swam 100 miles. Mason glanced at Ghost, who sniffed around a bucket of rope, tail finally relaxed now that the mission was complete. "That dog's something special." "Yeah," Danny said softly. "He really is." Ghost didn't get a formal ceremony. There were no camera crews waiting at the dock, no podiums, no speeches, just a few quiet nods around the precinct, a couple of extra treats slipped under the desk, a knowing look from fellow officers, but none of that mattered to Ghost. He didn't work for applause. He worked for the look Danny gave him now. The one that said, "I see you." That she'd followed him because she believed in him. That trust wasn't just a word, but a bond forged through 1,000 small moments and tested in the crucible of crisis. A letter arrived from the department 3 days later. Typed, formal, bureaucratic. The actions of K947, Ghost, have been acknowledged by the Department of Homeland Security and forwarded for internal commendation. Due to the classifiable nature of the intercepted data and associated criminal activity, public recognition is not advised at this time. That was it. No parade, no medal, no mention of the lives saved or disaster averted. Danny read it once, folded it in half, and slid it into a drawer she rarely opened. Later that week, she took Ghost to the beach. Not for training, not for a drill, just to let him run. The sun painted the water gold, the tide gentle against the shore. Ghost sprinted through the surf, kicking up spray, barking just once with what sounded like pure joy. Danny sat on a piece of driftwood, watching her partner finally relax. When he returned, dripping and panting, he dropped a stick at her feet. She smiled. "Now, you want to play fetch?" Ghost sat and looked at her, tongue lolling, eyes bright. For a moment, the badge and the radio disappeared. Just the wind, the salt, the sound of waves, and a dog who had swum farther than any training had prepared him for. Not because duty demanded it, but because somewhere out there, someone needed him. Back at the station, the legend grew. Not because Danny told it, but because stories like this have a way of spreading. A Coast Guard officer's teenage daughter posted a blurry photo of the life raft with the caption, "This dog swam 100 miles to save a girl. You'll never hear about it on the news." It got 4.2 million views. People didn't know the whole story, but they felt it. What would you have done if you spotted a dog swimming that far from shore? Would you have assumed it was lost, or would you have wondered what it was trying to reach? And here's the real question. Do you believe some dogs just know where they need to be? No training required, no commands given. Just that raw, bone-deep instinct to protect. If a canine like Ghost had been your partner, would you have trusted him enough to follow where he led? Drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. I read every single one. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button so more people can discover what these incredible canine heroes are capable of. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss another incredible story. We upload new, unbelievable canine tales every single day, so stick around.
Share this video with someone who still thinks dogs are just animals, and remind them that sometimes the only thing standing between life and death is a dog who refuses to give up.
Check out our other amazing canine stories appearing on your screen right now, and I'll see you tomorrow, same time, with another one that'll leave you speechless. Until then, stay safe out there.